The fluorescent lights of the office buzzed faintly, echoing off the glass walls that separated cubicle from cubicle. I sat at my desk, hands trembling slightly over the keyboard, trying to focus on the report due by the end of the day. I had poured hours, maybe even days, into every line of data, every chart, every analysis. And yet I felt the weight of her eyes on me, Rita, my boss, the woman who had become the embodiment of everything toxic about this workplace. I had tolerated her condescending comments, the sly digs during team meetings, the way she subtly erased my contributions. I had smiled politely, nodded, and kept my head down because I believed in professionalism, because I thought loyalty would matter. But today was different. The meeting room was packed. Clients, colleagues, and the ever-watchful HR manager had all squeezed into the space that was too small for the storm about to erupt. I walked in, carrying my laptop like armor, and took my seat. The hum of conversation filled the room, but it died the instant Rita cleared her throat. "Let's get started," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. She paused, scanning the room like a queen surveying her court. And then she landed on me. "I need to be honest," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Some of us here have been carrying dead weight for far too long, and unfortunately..." Her eyes locked on mine and my stomach dropped. "You, unfortunately, fall into that category." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My colleagues' expressions flickered between shock, sympathy, and embarrassment for me, for them. I opened my mouth to respond, to defend myself, but no words came. The world had gone still, every heartbeat magnified, every sound in the room echoing in my ears, effective immediately. She continued, her tone cruelly triumphant. "You are terminated. Your services are no longer required." Gasps filled the room. Someone coughed awkwardly. My laptop slipped from my hands, thudding against the table. I felt my cheeks burn, a mixture of humiliation, anger, and disbelief flooding through me. I had given years of my life, my sweat, my ideas, and my dedication to this company, and she had shattered it in 30 seconds, in front of everyone I had worked alongside. As I rose, I met her smug gaze with what little dignity I could muster. Do you have any idea what you're saying?" I asked, my voice trembling but controlled. Her laugh was sharp, dismissive. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm saying. You're useless. Everyone here knows it. Pack your things and leave. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." I walked out of the meeting room, the murmurs of my colleagues following me like a trail of breadcrumbs in the storm of my mind. Every step felt surreal, as if I were moving through someone else's life. The humiliation, the rage, the disbelief, they churned inside me, a tempest I couldn't yet control. Outside, the office corridor stretched endlessly, and I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. This wasn't the end. I couldn't let it be, I wouldn't. Somewhere deep down, in the shadow of my embarrassment, a spark flickered. A spark of anger, of determination, of something that would one day set everything right. And in that moment, I swore silently, she would regret this. I didn't go home that day. I wandered through the city streets instead, letting the autumn wind whip around me, tangling my hair and chilling my skin. My mind, though, was a furnace. Humiliation had turned into a slow, burning fire, the kind that seeps into your bones and refuses to let go. Every mocking smirk, every dismissive word Rita had thrown at me replayed in vivid detail, looping endlessly. But beneath the anger, beneath the hurt, there was another, quieter feeling, satisfaction. Not the smug, petty kind, but the kind that comes from knowing something nobody else does, something powerful. Years ago, when I had joined the company, I had been just another employee, eager but unassuming. I had noticed small cracks in management, moments where the company's future seemed uncertain, and I had quietly started building a stake. Stock options, early buy-ins, clever legal loopholes. I had positioned myself carefully, almost invisibly. It hadn't been easy. It had required patience, strategy, and discipline. But I had kept my secret, and now, that secret was a weapon. I found a quiet bench in the park and sat down, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I opened the company's shareholder portal. My breath caught in my throat, though I already knew the numbers. 87%. 87% of the company was mine. My fingers hovered over the screen, disbelief and exhilaration warring inside me. 87%. It was more than control. It was absolute power. I remembered all the times I had been dismissed, all the times I had been sidelined, all the times my ideas had been stolen and attributed to someone else. And suddenly, every slight, every insult, every public humiliation felt like fuel. But this wasn't about vindictiveness, not yet. This was about justice. She had underestimated me, dismissed me, degraded me. She thought I was nothing. And for the first time, I felt the sweet, intoxicating thrill of knowing that the entire boardroom, every client, every employee would soon see the truth. I closed my eyes and imagined the moment. Rita, standing at her desk, looking down at her suddenly diminished authority. I would not yell or scream or throw accusations. I would let the truth unfold in the most elegant, undeniable way possible. She would watch as her empire, the empire she believed she controlled, slipped quietly, irreversibly, into my hands. And yet, beneath the anger, there was a strange calm. This power wasn't just about revenge. It was about recognition, about finally receiving the acknowledgement I had long been denied. It was about turning the tables, not through cruelty, but through brilliance. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the city in shades of gold and fire, and I felt something shift inside me. My humiliation had been real, but it had also been temporary. My control, my knowledge, my patience, they were permanent. I stood up, brushing leaves off my coat, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my lips. The world hadn't seen the last of me. In fact, it hadn't even seen the beginning. And as the wind carried the city's distant hum into my ears, I whispered to no one, yet to everyone, "She thinks she's won, but I've been playing a longer game, and soon she'll understand exactly what I'm capable of." The first time I walked back into the office after my termination, it was under a different name with a different presence. Gone was the timid employee who had bowed her head at every insult. In her place was someone calm, calculated, and quietly dangerous, someone who owned the very walls she had tried to humiliate me within. Rita didn't know it yet, but the power she had flaunted like a crown was now a ghost, slipping through her fingers while she strutted, unaware. I had contacted our legal team under a pretense, secured temporary access for auditing purposes, and subtly reminded key clients of pending agreements and contracts in which my influence was unavoidable. Every move was a whisper, every action invisible but irreversible. The first confrontation was almost anticlimactic. She was in her office reviewing quarterly projections when I entered, announced as though I had every right. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice a mixture of irritation and forced civility. Her eyes flickered just slightly, but that flicker was all the opening I needed. "I'm here on behalf of the board," I said softly. "There's been an urgent matter regarding shareholding and executive decisions." Her smile faltered, but she masked it. "Of course, please go ahead." I watched as confusion crept across her features. One by one, the implications of what I said began to sink in. The contracts I had quietly activated, the shareholder votes I had secured, the legal contingencies I had orchestrated, they were all moving into alignment. She couldn't stop it. She couldn't argue with it. She could only realize painfully that the dead weight she had tossed aside was now her master. Meetings followed, and with everyone, her facade crumbled further. Employees who had whispered my name in sympathy now looked at me with respect or awe. Clients who had doubted my abilities called for my counsel first. And all the while, Rita tried desperately to reassert control, to salvage what remained of her dignity. But it was like trying to hold water in cupped hands. I didn't shout. I didn't humiliate her in front of everyone, not yet. That wasn't the point. My revenge was in the silence, in the inevitability of it all, the quiet, devastating realization that she had been wrong about me every step of the way. One afternoon, when the board convened to approve a new strategic plan, she finally confronted me. Her voice was brittle, strained. How is this possible? You can't, I think you'll find. I interrupted, voice calm, eyes steady, that the numbers don't lie. The majority vote is mine. The company belongs to me now, legally, entirely. Every decision, every direction, every contract, all under my control. Her jaw tightened, and I saw it. The first spark of genuine fear in her eyes. For the first time, Rita was powerless. I leaned back, allowing the room to absorb the moment. There was no gloating, only the quiet satisfaction of inevitability. Every slight, every insult, every cruel word she had ever thrown at me was now mirrored in the truth she could no longer deny. And in that silence, in that perfect, terrible, beautiful justice, I felt something more profound than triumph. It wasn't only revenge, it was recognition, it was validation. It was the world finally seeing me as I had always been, indispensable. The sweet taste of revenge lingered, but deeper than that was a revelation I hadn't expected. Power, patience, and quiet cunning could heal even the deepest wounds. The office felt different. Now almost surreal, the hum of fluorescent lights, the soft click of keyboards, even the faint scent of stale coffee. It was the same, yet completely mine. I walked through the corridors with a quiet confidence. No longer an employee, no longer overlooked. I had reclaimed my dignity, my worth, and, most importantly, the control that had always been rightfully mine. Rita's office remained the epicenter of her despair. She sat behind her desk, shuffling papers that no longer carried weight, her eyes darting nervously whenever I passed. I could see the subtle tremor in her hands, the tightness in her jaw. She was no longer a boss, she was a relic, a cautionary tale of arrogance and underestimation. The boardroom had become my theater of power. Every decision now carried my stamp, every strategy my influence. Employees who once whispered behind my back now greeted me with respect, even awe. Clients who had questioned my abilities now sought my guidance first. And Rita, she was left to watch, powerless, as the empire she thought she controlled slipped irrevocably from her grasp. Yet, as triumphant as I felt, there was a strange, bittersweet emptiness that lingered. Revenge was sweet, no, one could deny that, but it was not the ultimate victory. The true triumph lay in self-respect, in knowing my worth, in understanding that no insult or humiliation could diminish me unless I allowed it. One evening, as the city lights glimmered through the office windows, I found myself standing outside Rita's office. She looked up, startled, as I entered calmly, carrying nothing but my presence. I wanted to talk, she said, her voice fragile, stripped of the arrogance it once carried. I nodded, seating myself across from her. Go ahead. She swallowed hard, then admitted, I underestimated you. I thought I knew everything about this company, about you. I was wrong. You. Her voice faltered. You were never dead weight. I let her words hang in the air. There was no need for a retort. The truth had already spoken louder than any confrontation ever could. I realized then that the sweetest part of this revenge was not the power I now held, but the clarity, the closure, the understanding that I had never truly been defeated. I never was, I replied quietly, and I never will be, as long as I know my worth and remember the value of patience. She nodded, a faint trace of humility in her eyes, the kind she had never shown before. And in that moment, I understood something important. Revenge could hurt, could thrill, could liberate, but forgiveness, even in silence, could free the soul in ways that triumph alone never could. I stood, leaving the office with a final glance. Rita stayed behind, her empire intact in structure, but diminished in reality. A reminder that arrogance and cruelty rarely survive scrutiny and time. Outside, the city buzzed with life, indifferent, unyielding, and yet I felt invincible. I had been humiliated, dismissed, and branded as worthless. And now I walked among the very people who had once pitied me, carrying not just power, but dignity, patience, and the quiet knowledge that no one could ever underestimate me again. The world had shifted beneath my feet, and I was standing tall, unshaken, unstoppable, and free. And for the first time in years I smiled, not out of triumph, but because I had finally found peace.